In this video, I'm going to be exploring the defaults of the browser and how we can deal with it, whether it's a reset, a normalize, a reboot, and all these other things that people have come up with to do just that. Hi there, if you're new here, my name is Kevin, and here at my channel we learn how to make the web and how to make it look good with weekly tips, tricks, and tutorials. And in this week's video, we are going to be looking at the defaults and resets and normalizes and all that fun stuff. But before we do so, really excited to say that this video is brought to you by Skillshare. If you've been following me for any length of time, you know I don't do this type of thing. I don't promote stuff. I haven't had sponsored videos before, and with good reason. I've had lots of offers, a lot of shady hosting companies actually. But Skillshare reached out to me recently. It's actually a service that I've used in the past. I really enjoyed it. I thought there was a lot of quality content on it. So when they reached out to let me know, I dove in to see if there was things that would be really relevant to you guys. And just last week, I asked on my channel what are things that you struggle with a lot, and positioning was number one, but the second thing that came up again and again and again was grid. And Skillshare actually happens to have a course on CSS Grid by Rachel Andrew. I mean, if you know anything about grid, you probably heard her name. Between her and Jen Simmons, when grid was coming up and going through everything, they were the ones championing it. They're the two people who know about it. So Rachel is one of the foremost authorities on grid, and she has a course on it there. So if it's something you want to learn, that's, it's a great starting point. I've checked out the course. It has been awesome. It's a really nice way to get started and acquainted with grid. And Skillshare has been nice enough to give the first 500 people who sign up with the link down below in the description a free trial. It's a 2-month-long free trial. So you can actually check out that grid course for free effectively, which is just really awesome and really incredible. And once you're in there, you can check out some other stuff because they do have lots of other quality content. There's other web classes, and then there's just tons of other topics, and they're all high quality classes. I'd strongly recommend. So thank you very much to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. I really appreciate it, and I definitely encourage you to go and check it out. Moving on to the world of browser defaults and normalizes and resets and reboots and all of those things. We're going to go through a bit of like the history and why they exist and how we are where we are now and where things are actually going with it and sort of my opinions on it. And we're going to see some examples and some interesting stuff along the way too. So CSS resets have been around for a long time because if you've done anything with CSS, you probably know there's some default browser styles in there. And the one thing that's a little bit frustrating, and it's not as bad now as it used to be, but the browser defaults are actually different between browsers. So not only do the defaults get in our way sometimes, sort of like, body having a margin on it is kind of annoying. We're pretty much always getting rid of that. But when there's differences between browsers, and back in the day they were pretty big differences, that's really frustrating too, because you'd code something up and it would look different in both browsers. So a lot of the resets were just stripping everything away. And there was a few before Eric Meyer's reset, but that was sort of the big one. The one that, as far as I know, and in my own experience, was the one that took off. And it was going in and just trying to reset as much as possible. But it's resetting it because it was stripping everything away. Your font sizes were gone. Everything was, even your H1 looked like a paragraph. Everything was gone. There was no margins on everything. It was just, you're starting from a blank slate and then you're building back on top of it. But you're building back, so you have to add to everything. If you needed margins, you needed margins. But at least you knew where you were starting from, and it should be pretty consistent across your borders because everything was stripped away. And that was super popular for a really long time. And, with good reason, but things changed over time. There was a lot of other resets and a lot of other things that are around. But again, Eric seemed to be the big one for the longest time, or the one that most people would use, or they'd just come up with their own based on their needs. But more recently it's still been a long time. Normalize has been around for a long time. And it was, instead of just stripping everything down and, ripping, it was, before it was this like bombard, like we're stripping the thing down. We're getting down to nothing. This was more like, let's leave the browser defaults, but make sure all the browser defaults are the same. It also fixes some bugs. So it's going, this is how everything is supposed to behave. Let's put these styles in there to make sure that all the browsers are behaving like that. And that's super useful, right? So one thing you might not know about in the strong tag, if you're using strong, it's not, and you're not using a reset or anything, it's going to be different in Firefox or Chrome. It's weird, right? So here we are in Firefox and in Chrome, and as you can see, it's the same code in both of them because it's the same editor. If I come here and I, change this to Flex, you're going to see both of them changing at the same time. So I'm using the same code on both of these, and you can see this one, it's set to strong. I have a strong, and this one is more bold than that one because Chrome and Firefox render bold differently. Just if ever you're on CodePen, by default they are using Normalize, but right now I've turned it off. So if I do my inspect on here and we go and find there, you can see the font weight, user agent style is set to bold, but if I come and do the same thing over here, so they weren't showing us over here, but if I come and look, because it's a user agent style, strong is coming up as bolder. So I can see that in my computed where it's coming as 400. So if we come to here and look at the font weight, it's actually coming up to 700. That's a huge difference, 400 to 700. What's going on? So what is happening is, in Chrome, because it's defaulting to bold instead of bolder, it's just jumping to the bold weight, which happens to default to 700, whereas Firefox is actually following the spec properly, even if it doesn't, you wouldn't think so by going to 400, but it's because I've set my font weight here to 100. I've set it to the really light one, so based on the fonts I'm bringing in, it's jumping up a step. It's going bolder than my default font weight. So even if I set this to 300, you can see they almost look the same here. I still have this really nice, bold, massive, thick font here. It looks bold, whereas here you can't even see the difference. They look almost identical. So this is one of the things Normalize would be used for. So if I come and turn Normalize on, so it's just loading that in, and should be doing it on both, but for some, if we do it on both of them, now you can see they're actually both behaving in the same way. Now you might be going, it's weird that it's using stronger instead of bold, but Normalize is doing this because it's following the spec. It's doing what the spec says, which it should be bolder. Chrome's actually cheating and doing, doing their own thing on that. They're not alone on that, but at least now it's consistent across browsers. So, if you needed something, I could come and do this as strong as a font weight of 900. And then I can get my really bold font on both of them. So that's one of the many things that Normalize does. And the cool thing with Normalize is as you read through it, it explains why it's doing things. So it's saying fixes, Safari was different with this, so we're putting it how it should be. And we're fixing this bug with this. And there's comments throughout it to explain the reasoning behind all their decisions they're making. So even reading it, it can be eye-opening to see the differences between some browsers. And they mention the versions and everything in there too. And Normalize sort of took over Eric's reset. It's still, I think Eric's reset is still quite popular, but Normalize, it took a less burn it down approach. And I think it was the right decision to make. There's other ones that are sort of similar to what they're doing with Normalize, but they're a bit more opinionated. So Normalize tries to be as unopinionated as possible. We're just going to try and make sure everything's working the way it's actually supposed to work. We're going to take away the differences between the browsers. So it's not resetting anything. It's just taking the differences away from all the browsers. So we're starting on an even playing field. Sanitize is a really popular one that is more opinionated. It's sort of doing the same idea as what Normalize is doing. But they're injecting some opinion. So they're actually doing the box, the box sizing border box to switch it over on everything. So they're changing a behavior. They're going, this is the default. Makes more sense for us to move away and go into that because everybody does that anyway. So they're being opinionated in that. They're making some changes, and they've done that with quite a few things. It's not just the border box there. And but again, you read through it, you can see in the comments of everything, they've commented it up so you know why they're doing stuff, and they tell you when things are opinionated, and it's, so at least okay, this is how they think it should be done. One other one, then since Normalize, there's also been, you've probably heard of it, Reboot, which was done by Bootstrap. So Bootstrap sort of took Normalize and took it a few steps further. They did some extra stuff with it. They've based it on the idea of Normalize. I think they use Normalize as their starting point. They do say you can take Normalize as a standalone, so you don't have to use it with Bootstrap. You can actually just download, did I say Normalize? The Reboot. You can download Reboot by itself as its own standalone file, but I probably wouldn't do that just because it's sort of set up to work with Bootstrap. Because the way Bootstrap's created, they're going, okay, well, we need these few extra little things in there. But you can definitely check out their file and see if you like it better or not. There's nothing wrong with that. And now there's actually a new one that's on its way in that I'm sort of excited about and I'm following the progress of, which is CSS Remedy. There's Jen Simmons, who we talked about at the beginning with, she helped championing Grid. She's one of the people who's really getting the dev tools to be amazing in Firefox. She sort of listens to developers, working with the people at Mozilla to make those really awesome Firefox dev tools. She's with them coming up with a more modern reset. So as you can see here, this is the CSS Remedy GitHub page. I'll put a link to this in the description below so you can check it out. And it's to start your project with a remedy for the technical debt of CSS, a gift to you from the Mozilla Developer Outreach. So here, if we look at the general ideas and guiding ideas, CSS set CSS properties or values to what they would be if they were creating CSS today from scratch and didn't have to worry about backward compatibility. That would be amazing if we could do that. But so you can come here and check it out in a little bit more detail if you'd want to. So you can see actually they have a lot of history on resets here, going way back, some really good inspiration and history of just resets in general, what we're doing with them. So a few that I mentioned, you have the sanitize, normalize, reboot. Eric Myers is in here somewhere, and you can see that there was some from before 2007. So we've been using resets, or 2004 there. This was a really pretty heavy duty one back in the day. So you can check out some of these and what they did. I think that was a heavy duty one anyway. So if we come and look at what they're doing in here, you can sort of get an idea. They actually have something here for prefers reduced motion, so that changes animations, gets rid of animations for people that are doing it. The box sizing border box, taking off your margins, changing your font sizes, and a few other things along the way. Fixing line heights, because for headings, line heights being smaller is a good thing usually. And they give reasons why they're doing it, just like most of the other more modern ones, but they do go through and sort of explain what they're doing with all of them. But the really cool thing here, in my opinion, because it's still a work in progress, is the conversations having on some of it. So if you go over to the issues here and you see the different things in here, you can check out some of them. So contributions from Sanitize. So you can see some really cool ideas. There's a lot of accessibility. There's a lot of accessibility things in here and typography flags in here. So here, ensure nav UL styles are not bad for accessibility. That's really cool. And maybe you could come in and then read more about it. I've read this one. There was stuff in here I seriously didn't know about, which is with a list style none, that I think it's VoiceOver. Yeah, VoiceOver it removes the list semantics. It doesn't treat it like a list anymore. I didn't know that. And it actually goes into a discussion on here about, well, do we need to put our navs in a list then? And there's some really interesting conversations with really smart, amazing people that are going on in the issues that are here now as this is being thought out and built. And you can come in and give your own ideas or comment on stuff, or just check it out and read, which is pretty much what I've been doing, and seeing what the really smart people on CSS are thinking and doing, and some of the ideas that they're bouncing off each other, which is really, really cool. So I strongly recommend coming to check it out. As it says here, this project is just getting started, so it's too early to distribute as part of other frameworks. You can read the files, take inspiration, but it's maybe not ready to use yet. So for now, though, I'm keeping a really close eye on this. I think for now I'm going to continue using Normalise, but really, really cool to be able to follow something along like this and get some ideas from it and all of that. I strongly recommend checking it out, or if you're not already using something like Normalise or anything like that, you can definitely, right now I'd probably use Normalise. I'm still using Normalise on my projects, but I'm really closely following Remedy to see where it's going to go and what they're going to be doing with it, because I might be switching over to that way. A lot of the things they're doing are the types of stuff that, it's one step further. It's opinionated because they're changing the behavior of stuff, but I think they're heading in the right direction. And that's it. I'd love to know if you could leave a comment down below and let me know what you're using. Are you using a reset at all? Are you doing the tear it down, burn the forest to the ground, and restart from nothing? Are you using something like Normalise, or maybe you're creating your own reset? And if you are creating your own reset, share it down below as well and let other people check it out, because that could be cool and fun to see what other people are up to. If you haven't yet joined us over in the community, come and join us. There's a link down in the description below. It's a Discord channel where we have discussions about all sorts of really cool stuff. So come and join us, whether you're new and you want to ask some questions, your experience, you want to help people out, or just talk with other devs and stuff like that. You're more than welcome to join us. A big thank you to my patrons for helping support this channel and everything I do here. Thank you guys very much, and a massive shout out to Lauren, who's my supporter of Awesome. Thank you for the generous support. If you're curious about it or you want to know more about Patreon, there's a few little perks, a vlog I do there, and some other stuff, so there is a link to that as well in the description with, you can see the type of stuff I'm putting over there. Thank you again one last time for watching, and until next time, don't forget to make your corner of the internet just a little bit more awesome.